Alrighty, so this will be a guide on just spots you should always check to see if scrap is there because it can spawn there, and otherwise you might miss it without checking. First spot is going to be inside this gray little tube thing. So usually your scan does a good job about picking things up in here, but sometimes you might miss it. So it's good to always hover over, scan these, and check these because you can see items can spawn inside them. Next is in server room. I have had a few times where scrap spawns on top of these servers, so it's always good to, when you're going through here, check the normal scrap spawns on the ground, but also do a quick peek on top of the servers. Our next two are in locker room. Now, when you're checking locker room, it's always good to, even if you think you have an empty locker like this where you don't see it, check the very bottom. Sometimes it can be very hidden and you can only get the prompt on the bottom of the locker without actually seeing the item. And the other spot to check is up these stairs here on top of this gray thing. So on top of this little like big pillar, scrap can sometimes spawn on top of here. There's a couple spots in this big belt room that you need to look out for. The first is along this belt. I've seen items a lot spawn in this area here, and also at the very back of the belt down here, I've seen some items spawn on top of here. In addition, I've seen items kind of spawn under this little staircase here. So you can actually reach them by just like looking in the staircase. You can also sometimes scan it, but you'll look in the staircase and just pick it up through the staircase. I don't know why it spawns down there. In addition to that, sometimes you'll see scrap spawn on this wooden beam here, like here, or even on the lower floor of the wooden beam. So what you need to do for that is drop down onto the beam. When you get your item, then what you have to do is you have to make your jump across there. And you can just usually walk through this. So what you're going to do is with your item, you're going to jump across. And then you're going to have to jump around here. Do the same thing. And then jump here. And then you have your item. Now there have been times on these little jumps. Shut up, Bell, bruh. Now there have been times on these jumps where I have scrap spawn underneath the grating here, so you just have to keep an eye out for that. I don't think it will scan. Maybe sometimes it does, but sometimes it won't let you scan it, and so you might miss it if you don't turn around and just do a quick glance under there for these jump spots. One last little thing I want to mention for the factory tile is that scrap that spawns in this bracken looking room, although, it doesn't spawn in the bracken looking room, it spawns because there's an adjacent room that's a scrap spawner. But regardless, the scrap will always spawn in these two corners, close to the entrance. So I don't think I've ever seen scrap anywhere else in the room besides either this corner or that corner if it does spawn, so just make sure if you see this room, I just like to do a quick glance, check left, check right. No scrap, then you're good for the room. Now, mansion tiles have a lot of sneaky spots. A good place to start is in the main area. The loot can sometimes spawn on top of these little bookshelves here. I've seen it quite a few times where you'll have like bottles or a painting or just really any scrap item that are on top of these bookshelves. And so it's just good to keep an eye out for that. Also, it's important to check the back corners here. I've seen loot spawn here on this side and that side in this back part a couple times. In addition, I always like to make it a nice rule of thumb to always just scan bookshelves as I'm going by them, because scrap will sometimes just spawn inside the bookshelf and there's a very small part that's sticking out. So you really won't be able to see it most of the time, you'll just be able to scan it. Now, a really good example of this is in these stair tiles. You will see loot a lot of times in this specific corner and you'll be able to scan it, but you'll see it in this specific corner up the stairs. So always make sure to scan and check this little corner for scrap in these tiles. In addition, you always want to check the tops of these bookshelves in this little tile where you have the stair going up, because you will definitely see a lot of times loot spawn on top of these specific bookshelves. One last place to always check in this room is this little railing here. So what you can do is jump onto this little ledge here and walk across, and sometimes loot will spawn along this ledge. It's always good to scan over here and check this area. Now, it's always good to check this little crack in between the two countertops. You'll sometimes find loot in there. And then another thing is to check for bugged lamps. So you will sometimes see a light inside this little counter, and it's a stuck lamp that you can't grab. And what you'll do is just place the ladder and walk forwards, and then it'll shove you under this little lip. And what you'll do is pick up your ladder and do the same thing, place it and walk. And then you'll be pushed in here where you can grab the bugged item. If you have any secret spots of your own that you found loot that is very obscure and you might not find without looking in the specific spot, please be sure to put them in the comments below to help out others.